KFAN on Westwood One Radio Row in New Orleans is presented by Indeed.com. Streamline how you hire with Indeed. Their powerful platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one same place. Visit Indeed.com/credit today for more information. AJ Mansour, like I said, back in New Orleans on the NCAA Final Four Radio Row, joined now by Andy Katz. Andy, I'm going to read your Twitter bio because I want to talk to you specifically about that real quick. Okay. And, of course, I closed it. Here we go. Nice planning, AJ. This is great. The part that I want to talk about is you have a digital reporter.
Yes.
The one thing that many people have probably noticed about you is your embrace of social media and how that has helped you on your platform and helped you do your job. Tell me a little bit about that process, because not everybody does it. Not everybody embraces it well. Not everybody chooses to embrace it at all. But it is part of my job, so it is very interesting to see you kind of embrace that and run with it and really make that a part of who you are and your platform.
So I always felt like I had to sort of reinvent myself. Toward the end of my time at ESPN, we were doing a ton of digital content. And I looked at it as a way, because we were so linear focused of what could we get on SportsCenter, what could we get in our halftime shows and so on. And you found that more and more the time was so limited. And not that you can go endless, because we have found also that people don't watch things that are too long on social media. But I learned then of making sure that we embrace it. And if I can tell you a very quick story.
Absolutely.
So really where things flipped for me was I was doing a UConn-Cincinnati game, and Mick Cronin got double-teed. I think he got thrown out. And the game ends, and, ESPN, you got to go to the next one. But we didn't get a chance to talk to him after of the confrontation with the official and so on. And so I went back by Cincinnati's locker room, and I interviewed Mick on my phone. And there's a photo that Ronnie Forsheimer, who was our then digital editor, he had in his office that someone shot, which in the back of my cell phone is on a tripod, and I'm interviewing Mick Cronin, and behind us you can see the game camera person walking past me holding a $50,000 camera.
Right.
Okay? And I'm on my cell phone. And yet that interview ended up running on SportsCenter because we got his reaction. And that to me was like what clicked, like, wait a minute, I can use my phone to get content. Why wouldn't I do that?
Right.
Why am I a prisoner to when we are off the air and the tight windows of everything?
Right.
I'm still trying to push the envelope with that, because there's still plenty of people who only think linear.
Yeah.
And so the pandemic opened up a whole new world for all of us of thinking digitally. And so I feel like I was sort of a little ahead, not ahead of everyone, but in my own career path and adjusting and changing of embracing this medium.
It allows you to hit the ground running rather than having to adjust as everyone else did.
Right. And not always have to rely on others to, get their camera, get their lights, and all sorts of things.
Well, I'm going to continue this conversation. It's probably not what you had thought or
no, that's fine.
A lot of young kids are coming up and getting into an industry where people are saying it's tough, it's cutthroat. You need to have an opportunity, you need to have an example, and nobody gets those opportunities. They're tough to come by. Internships don't exist as much as they used to. Those opportunities, but when you do have, you mentioned the cell phone. You can do podcasts, you can do videos, you can do live streams on your phone, and essentially put together a reel or examples or a resume of stuff, things to do. Like you mentioned with this specific example of the interview you caught in the back, there used to be so much more that fell between the cracks. The broadcast time, you don't have the production team, you don't have the camera guy to do it, so it just didn't happen. You knew these things, you incorporated them into articles and these things, but these opportunities now, that really is what is an opportunity for anybody, young or old, in this industry to set themselves apart, just to be available, be present, and take advantage of opportunities that didn't used to have.
Yeah, and I think you are, really hurting yourself if you don't take advantage of these situations where you can create content on your own. And I do think, and I've told young people that there's a lot of different ways that you can get into this business by, by whether it's working for teams and conferences. Everyone's looking for a digital reporter and social media, and so will we get to a point where those are more lucrative? I hope we will. But there are more, it's weird. With fewer newspapers and fewer like sort of local news, I almost feel like there's more opportunities in the digital space than obviously we have ever had before.
Whether it's professional sports teams or even professional companies in the business world, they're all taking it internal and these internal communications positions to kind of put their own stuff out, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, whatever that is. That's where that world is. So I could talk about this all day with you. This is great. Well, I love this so far. But we're here to talk basketball. We're here to talk Final Four. Tell me a little bit about the experience of having a Final Four. We don't always get this where there are 4 blue blood teams. There's lots of storylines. There's going to be gigantic crowds of fans coming to New Orleans. It adds something to the environment, but March Madness, we love both sides of that. We love Cinderella. We love blue bloods. But this is exciting to have big teams here.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and in your home city as well.
Right.
I think the fact that the women's Final Four is in Minnesota. I think tonight, 4, they may not be blue bloods, but 4 amazing programs on the women's side, great coaches, historic coaches. So I think of the 8 teams, it's pretty impressive of what is remaining. And, it's great that we're getting, not that we wouldn't want some Cinderellas, but to have the first sort of semi-normal Final Four, for the most part normal Final Four after this pandemic or coming out of it, and to have these fan bases that I think will flood the market. Ratings should be great. So I think, couldn't have asked for anything better.
One last question, we'll let you get off to your next conversation. We talk about the interesting angles and all these things in the reporting world that you can come up with. Tell me a little bit about the changes the last couple years when you come to transfer portal, and the NIL. Any interesting angles or how does that, I guess, change how you look at things and analyze things or even write a cool story about a situation? Right now, Paige Becker's UConn is back in Minneapolis, just launched an NIL with a local food bank to have a local pop-up grocery store. Those are cool stories that didn't exist 5 years ago. That side of it changes as well when you have those sorts of things changing the sport and for the players.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things. One, I don't think we gave people enough credit. Like, it's not all about greed. We're seeing great acts of kindness, of trying to improve the community, the world through NIL. So that's positive.
Yeah.
On the other side, I actually think it's going to keep people in school. I think it's going to actually have the opposite effect of what the critics were saying, which is if you're not a first-round draft pick, men's or women's side, because now you can enter the WNBA draft, that I think we're going to see more players decide, you know what, I can make as much money as a potential second-round pick or overseas as I would spending a year through an NIL deal. So I think the game's going to be better because there's going to be more experienced players staying.
That's an interesting perspective, and you're probably right. That's a cool conversation. Andy Katz, the digital reporter and analyst for March Madness in basketball. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. AJ Mansour back at the Radio Row in New Orleans, coming up with more after this commercial break.